The weekend's match against Liverpool is a fascinating encounter, not just because of the two teams. It's the two managers. There's two managers in David Moyes and Jurgen Klopp who both know they're on their way out. That's a really interesting dynamic, actually. But there obviously are some slight differences between it. One of them, in Jurgen Klopp, he's decided that it's his decision. He wants to go. He wants to leave. As with David Moyes, I don't care what anybody says. This is not David Moyes' decision. When David Moyes came out and he started saying, well, there's a contract in front of me and I'll decide on this myself, whether it's right, what did he say, whether it's right for the club, whether it's right for me and my family. He said all that type of stuff. It very much looked like jumping before you pushed. He was that bloke who knew he was going to get dumped by his girlfriend, so he dumped her quickly before. Not that I've ever done that, you understand. But I just thought, yeah, okay, this is him trying to control the narrative in terms of the perception from the outside looking in. But I didn't feel that what was going on there really had any real accuracy on the reality of the situation. So I still think it's one manager in Moyes who's being pushed out, and it's another manager in Jurgen Klopp who's decided to go. You've got the nuanced differences of actually Klopp is not at the end of his contract anyway, as I understand it. David Moyes was. But what I am finding really, really quite interesting to look at as a situation is how's David Moyes going to handle this, because of the approach for Ruben Amorim. There's no doubt at all, from any point at all, that Amorim was flown over for talks with West Ham. Now, as it stands at the moment, he's not going to sign. He doesn't want to. I've not given up totally, but as I've maintained for some time now, I still think it's Lopetegui and Fonseca who are the most likely candidates on that. However, West Ham still made an approach, and I think there's a difference to the rumours of Lopetegui and Fonseca and the impact that would have on David Moyes. There's a difference to that and actually seeing someone flown over and then the whole world knowing that the club that you work for are having talks with somebody else. Now, this is not an unusual situation in modern football. Let me just put it that way. There are a lot of coaches who spend a year or 2 years at a certain club and then they'll move on to another club. Funny enough, Fonseca's one of them. It's accepted as part of the job. That's just what happens. And it's not even thought of as the managerial merry-go-round. It's not even managers, they're head coaches these days. Gio did a wonderful video last night talking about why he didn't want Lopetegui, and I agree with all of it, really. But what he was specifying was how it's important to have the director of football, and the club has an ethos, so it doesn't matter if you lose Graham Potter, it doesn't matter because you put De Zerbi and he goes in there. The ethos remains the same. The use of the players remains the same. And that's, so they're all like that now. The majority of them are basically head coaches. And it's just accepted. That's the way modern football is. But if there's one person we know that's not accepted the way modern football is, it's David Moyes. So I think whilst there are some managers who would be quite happy to see out the remaining 2 months of their contract or whatever it might be, David Moyes is going to find it more difficult than them. There's a pragmatism normally to coaches doing it. I think David Moyes is going to be irked. He's wounded. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And see the way that, and you will not convince me of any different. Whilst I'm quite open to have my mind changed on a lot of things, I'm very, very convinced that what happened within the last couple of weeks with so many of the press coming out and backing David Moyes, I think that was contrived. I think that was... I think he'd let it be known to his friends in the media that he was unhappy with what was going on at West Ham. That's why so many of them came out all at the same time and all said the same thing. So I think that demonstrates that he's wounded by it. But what I am interested in is how is he going to pick himself up? If we assume that everything I've said thus far is true and he's not taking it particularly well, how is he going to pick himself up for the game against Liverpool? How is he going to motivate the players? Because there is also a slight difference in terms of the players' attitude, because now they've seen it. Make no mistake about it at all. We've spoken about this when we've had on Hammers Chat Patreon. You know, when we do the Anton Ferdinand podcast, and Anton said it. Anton said it's not just a case of people players talking to one another. They'll be screenshotting things on their phones and sending it to one another. Players behave in exactly the same way that all the rest of us behave. And I thought about Anton. I thought about what he said when I was seeing the pictures of Amorim by the private jet, and all those that would have been shared around all the players, so they'd have all known about it. So if they didn't know before, now the West Ham players know that David Moyes, for want of a better phrase, is a dead man walking. What does that do for the tactics? I think it's fair to assume that there will be some cynicism within the West Ham squad about our defensive tactics. We are awful. I think I can't even remember what the stat is. Lots of stats came out last week. I think somebody said that I don't know if it's this season or this year or whatever it is, but we had conceded 3 or more goals more times than we'd kept clean sheets. The stat was something like that. We've definitely got the worst defensive record outside of the bottom 3. We're bloody awful. Can't defend. Let's leave it at that. There's lots of stats that back that phrase up. We can't defend. So I think it's fair to suggest there'd be some cynicism amongst the playing staff when David Moyes is giving his tactical team talk, when he's saying, right, this is what we're going to do to line up against Liverpool. This is how we're going to keep Nunes quiet. Actually, don't need to keep Nunes quiet. He just has to miss. I'm joking. I am joking. I shouldn't have said that. He's going to score now. But, you know, how are we going to keep Salah quiet? This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to keep Diaz quiet. And he's giving his tactical instruction to the team on how to defend. It's fair to say it might be looking, thinking, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. You're crap at organising this defence. David Moyes would have every right to look at his defenders and say, well, you're crap at defending. But anyway. But before, they probably had to do exactly what he said. I'm not sure they do now. I think they could probably look at it and think, well, you're off anyway. We're going to do what we want. There's been more than 2 or 3 occasions when it's been levelled at the squad. I think the first one I remember was Nottingham Forest last year. We won against Nottingham Forest. Danny Ings scored 2 goals, didn't he? Of course, it all came out that was not David Moyes' tactics. Someone else had taken over. We had it at one point this season when we won, and the people were suggesting that wasn't David Moyes' tactics. That was Heitinger that did it. I don't believe any of that. I think when we win, it's because of David Moyes. I think when we lose, it's because of David Moyes. The fact of the matter is, we were losing considerably more now, and we're letting in lots of goals. That's on David Moyes, and I'm not sure there has been this mutiny that's been suggested before, but I wouldn't blame the players for just not paying as much attention anymore. And I think that's got to be difficult for David Moyes to manage, for anyone in that situation to manage. Particularly, you're wounded. You know that you're wounded by what's been said about you. David Moyes is probably his appraisal of himself is probably more generous than some others' views of him. He probably thinks he's been hard done by. He probably thinks, hold on a second, there's history repeating itself here. I got you out of relegation, then you hired Pellegrini. He probably feels that he's more than done his job by, successive seasons in European football, winning the trophy. He's probably thinking, what are you mad? Why are you trying to get rid of me again? We know he thinks that, because that's what he alludes to it all the time, and his friends in the media say it. But that's established. He thinks that. So, he's going to be a little bit wounded. I'm wondering how he's going to get motivated for this game. How he's going to even be. I mean, would you? I've tried to put myself in his position. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I could be asked. I've got to be honest with you. It's we've all worked with someone, right, who knows they're going. They know they're leaving. They hand in their notice and they're going in 2 or 3 weeks' time, which is pretty much where we are with David Moyes. There's a month. There's 4 games left, right? There's a month left of the season, whatever it is. We've all been there. Sometimes at work, they see out their contract, but we've all been there, right, where the person in charge, where the manager has just let them go early. They're not focused on it. They're focused on their next job. They probably had to pass that project over to someone else that's doing it. We've all seen it. And I don't see why football managers should be any different. Yeah, they're paid more money, but, I guess when you've got 20 million in the bank, what's another 500,000 or what it might be that he might earn? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just not sure how he's going to motivate the players, how receptive the players are going to be to his messaging. But I don't blame the club, by the way. I think the club had to go and do this early. I really do. I don't think we could wait. And what the suggestion was, and the news being leaked out, was that we were going to wait for this list. Steiten was going to compile this list, then we were going to sit down with Moyes. That was what the club had been saying even up until today. That's what the club was saying. It's turned out that that's a load of rubbish. It's just something that they're saying. The truth of the matter is we're trying to hire now. in preparation for next season. So we should, because other clubs can come in and hire these coaches. So we've got to get in there early. I think we've been slow at signing players before, and other clubs have come in and pinched players because we've traditionally waited until not even just the transfer window opens, until near the end of the transfer window. We then try and do our business, and we can't do it. We get pipped to the post. So I don't blame us for going in early. In fact, I think we had to. And I am adamant that news was leaked from the player side of things, from the agent. And I think it was leaked in an effort to get Liverpool. I think we were used. I think West Ham were probably used by Amorim. I really do. But I can't blame us for trying to do it early. And I think just as part of that process, David Moyes is going to find out. And so I just wonder if there is... I don't know. It's going to be interesting. If David Moyes beats Liverpool... And I will say that, and I should say if West Ham beat Liverpool, but the story is on West Ham's manager. If David Moyes beats Klopp, let's put it that way, then it is going to be interesting. I would look at the decision to keep him there and think, okay. And I would say fair play to him for continuing to be motivated. I think it would be a case of him sticking two fingers up at the club, at us maybe, at everybody else, and saying, look, I know what I'm doing here. And I'd say fair play, because as I say, personally, I'm not sure I'm not sure that I could probably motivate myself to do it. But the flip side is, if West Ham lose against Liverpool, there's going to be this massive sort of tsunami of opinion which says, well, what's he still doing there? There's no point. He is in complete and utter limbo. And, while I do want David Moyes to go, I absolutely do. But I've no desire to see anyone suffer. I don't like it. I think it's a bad watch, be it a football manager or anyone else. I don't like it. I just don't. I just find it very, very uncomfortable to watch anyone struggling at anything. And I think, and I know as cruel as it sounds, put them out their misery. It's not like there's anything bad going to happen to David Moyes. He's a rich, rich man. He can go off and cruise the world for the next 6 months if he wants. Totally recharge his batteries. Get out with his family. It's not. His next best scenario is really something that would be a dream for the rest of us. So I'm not wishing anything bad on him, but I'm not sure what we're about to see in this upcoming weekend is going to be a particularly pretty sight to behold. Look, we'll do a preview ahead of the Liverpool game. Who knows? But who knows what's going to happen there? But I just think it's really, really hard to see this going well. And I think whilst half of the process has probably been thought out in terms of us recruiting managers, we're clearly at it. We're clearly trying to look for a new head coach. We're clearly trying to do that. I think the other part of what we're going to do with David Moyes in the interim has probably not been thought through. And we're not great at it. Look, again, I didn't particularly like Avram Grant. I certainly didn't rate him as a manager. But I thought he deserved better than to be sacked. Where were we? Away at Wigan, and he got sacked. And then did the players not have to beg for him to be allowed back to travel back on a team coach? That was a low point. That was a really, really low point. I don't want this stuff. I don't like to see this stuff. I want the club to have an integrity about them. I want the club to have class. I really do. I know you're laughing, but I do. That's sort of what I expect. You can make a ruthless decision, and you can make a decision what's best for the club, but you can still act in a respectable manner throughout it. So I'm not sure how much thought has been given to what we're going to do with David Moyes. You know what? And I know there'll be people thinking, well, hold on a second, David Moyes is spiky and he's not been particularly nice to us in a way. He's sort of been quite demeaning to West Ham fans in the media and a lot of the time, and he can be quite belittling. I would agree with all those things, but it doesn't mean you have to do it back. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what happens against Liverpool. I find it hard to imagine how he's going to motivate the players. I think he probably should have been let go by now, truth be known. But not only would I be happy to be proven wrong if he can get towards the end of the season and we can get some wins. I would be happy for that. But I think moreover, I'd be impressed. I'd be impressed with David Moyes. And do you know what? Fair play to you for being in this position that you probably don't want to be in, where you're unwanted, you don't have a job to look forward to, yet still you've turned up to work, you've got the players playing, and you've managed to deliver a message and got a win. I mean, the thing is, I say those words, I don't ultimately believe it. But anyway, there you go. Let me know what you think in the comments below.